This is With the First Pick, the CBS Sports NFL Draft Podcast. This is episode 89. Rick, do you have a favorite 89 from yesteryear?
No, I never get prepared for this.
These are actually, the 89 is a pretty tough one. I'll give you two great ones. Mike Ditka and John Mackey.
Mike Ditka was 89.
Yeah, so two tight ends, two Hall of Famers, two 89s. That, of course, is Rick Spielman. I'm Ryan Wilson. Today is Tuesday, which means it's time for our favorite segment, Pop or Drop, where we highlight some of the top performances from last week's college games. And Rick, we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention on Oregon-Washington, that matchup, which features some big-time QBs and some big-time wide receivers. We'll also look in on how the weekend went for Caleb Williams and Drake Maye, and the consensus top two quarterbacks since the spring. And as always, we'll rank our top 5 NFL rookie performances from week 5 and, week 6. No Jalen Carter, by the way, for the Eagles. He was out. In related news, the Eagles are winless without Jalen Carter. Just saying, Debo. And by the way, as always, we'll look at the rookie quarterback performances. Some good news for Bryce Young, I think, and we'll talk about that in a second. First things first, Rick, if you're watching us on the old YouTubes at NFL and CBS, you can see on the official With the First Pick draft countdown board. What we got, Rick?
191 days until the 2024 NFL draft. In 91 days, I get to be nice to Ryan. And then once it goes below 100, taking the gloves off, no holds bar.
It's go time. That's right. Yeah, not looking forward to that. If this is you being nice, I'm in deep trouble. By the way, if you missed it last Thursday, Josh Edwards joined us for a live mock draft show. Only 2 quarterbacks went in the first round somehow. So, Rick, when we get to April 25th, is there a chance, 191 days from now, I should have said, is there a chance only 2 quarterbacks go in round 1?
I think see how the rest of the season goes in the pre-draft process, but there may be a couple of these guys because there's a glutton of quarterbacks on vying for number 3 right now. So I imagine as teams identify their needs and teams that do need quarterbacks, even though they may draft them in the first round and not have them ready to play year 1, but a potential replacement and let them sit for a year, like we've seen with Pickett, like we've seen with Ritter, like we've seen with Howe. Some of those guys, if they continue to play the way they're playing, may end up going there in that first round, especially if they're going to redshirt for a year. If teams say that, to have that 5th-year option. But there's a lot to be determined yet between now and 191 days.
Yeah, there really is. It feels like, for me, the quarterback 3 picture is getting a little clear, but it's still pretty murky waters. Do you feel the same way, or are you still uncertain?
Still very murky.
All right, very murky for Rick. Either way, you can check out that podcast in the old podcast feed. This week, we're going to get around to those 5-star prospect evaluations that you all sent us. So, and we'll also take a look at my top 50 midseason big board, Rick, which I didn't include you in on. So you have, you're going to be acting like it's under 100 days to the draft when you see that thing, because there's a lot of winners on there. I'll just give you a little sneak peek. Spencer Rattler, probably higher for me than for you. I'll just leave it at that.
He's on the top 50 for you?
Would he crack your top 50, do you think?
No.
I don't understand why you don't like Spencer Rattler. Another good game this weekend, except he threw an interception in the end, which I know bothers you. He's trying to win it by himself because he has no one else out there except Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette made my top 50 as well. What do you think about that?
Who?
Our guy number 17, Xavier Legette, the wide receiver for South Carolina.
Oh, I liked him. He was
okay. All right, so he's on there too. So you can pick and choose the Gamecocks you like.
Kind of my rat hole player in my back pocket that no one knows about. So
he's your Antoine Green to Pete Prisco, is what you're saying.
No, he's better than Antoine Green.
Well, Pete was talking about he discovered this guy Antoine Green out of UNC who the Lions
he's doing a lot this year, his rookie year.
So anyway, if you can't wait until Thursday's show, you can go look on CBSSports.com and see my top 50 big board. There's also on CBSSports.com, Devo and Forbes, a story about some former general manager who did a mock draft. So you can check that out as well. By the way, I mentioned a moment ago, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, nominate an FBS or FCS college player, and we'll evaluate his draft prospects on an upcoming show. We'll obviously do that on Thursday. We'll empty out a lot of that, and then we'll circle back because it's only mid-October. There's plenty of time to review these prospects, and we like doing it. And here's the headline. If you're listening to us The headline's 2024 NFL mock draft: XGM gives wide receiver to Cowboys, quarterback to the Broncos and Bears, and with the first pick, joint edition. It's like a Spike Lee thing, joint. So congratulations, Rick. You're published.
I didn't write that.
You said it, though. You said it into the pewter.
Yeah. No, I didn't say it into the pewter. I said it on this podcast.
You realize you're talking into a computer right now, right?
Yeah. Camera.
Oh, I see. All right. Finally, if you don't mind, take a second to hit the old thumbs up on YouTube, NFL, and CBS. It helps us grow the podcast and spread the word around the world. All right, Rick, it is go time. And let's get your impressions first. Did you get a chance to watch the Oregon-Washington game?
I did.
What'd you think? That was a great football game. What were your takeaways just generally from that?
The only thing that really stuck out to me, you had two high-flying offenses going up and down the field. It was a great game, one of the most competitive college football games I've seen this year. Fun to watch if you're a football fan. Fun to see all of these players that played in that game. You're going to be seeing playing in the NFL as well. There's a lot of prospects in that game, and we're going to highlight a few coming up here as we get into the show. But very, very fun game to watch. And I've been to that stadium, and it is one of the, even though it's an outdoor stadium, one of the loudest stadiums I've ever been in. And when you are up in that press box, which is about 25,000 miles high, little ants running around on the field, when they start jumping up and down that stadium, that whole press box shakes. And I made one mental error.
Just one?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a mental error. It was a little hiccup. I went to a night game there. I went to the Apple Bowl one year and just got in the brand new stadium, and it was cold and rainy, just like it is up in the Seattle area. And I didn't know that the press box was an open air press box.
Ooh.
So it was a little bit of a mental toughness test, right? And hone in and focus on what you're doing, and also shake him like a dog crapping razor blades.
Oh my gosh, there's a new one. I'll write that one down. That's quite the visual. Yeah, that's a rookie mistake. That's not like you. Was that a long time ago?
Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, not that long ago. It wasn't like you were a scout on the road.
But I have been there since the new stadium because they revamped that stadium.
Gotcha.
And so I was unaware that the new stadium wouldn't be an enclosed press box, or at least where they put the scouts, it was open air.
Because usually when they usher in Mr. Spielman to the press box, he has a throne that he sits on with a little velvet cape and a crown. And this was open air, and you had to sit with the peasants.
Just a man with an oar, just trying to row the boat every way, the same way everybody else is.
You got one oar, you're going in a circle. Yeah, that was a fun game. So when I went back to watch it, it's funny because Washington offensively ran about 66 plays and Oregon ran 89 plays. They ran 23-ish more plays. A lot of it was because they were leaning on the run, Oregon was. But when you watch it live, you didn't get that sense. Now, if you're an Oregon fan, you probably have some concerns with the play calling down the stretch, especially on fourth down, whatever. But we're here to talk about the quarterbacks in particular. Then we'll talk about a couple of these wide receivers. Let's start with Michael Penix. I don't know what to say. Like, he had 2 ACLs. He had 2 shoulders going back to his time in Indiana. That does not show up when he plays. He is so tough. I don't know if there's a better deep ball thrower right now in college football. He throws with great anticipation. And we've said in the past this season when we've talked about him that, yeah, but he has so much time in the pocket. It makes it hard to tell whether if it's just him or if it's just the fact that he's not being pressured. Well, he got popped in the mouth early on in this game because Oregon has some dudes on defense. Never lost his focus downfield. Took some hits, made some decisions that maybe he wanted back. He did have an interception. Roma Dunze slipped on that interception. But I came away with this more impressed coming out of the game than I was going in with Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, no, I put that he may end up, if he has a legit argument to be the number 3 quarterback off the board right now, if the draft was tomorrow. But there's 2 things that probably he is a pocket passer. He's not a great athlete to buy a second chance in the pocket. And the only other negative I had coming out of this game is that he does get hit in the mouth, but he gets right back up, tough as nails. But when he does get hit, some of his accuracy will fall off. where
can
you
I ask you a question real quick? When you
yeah,
say not athletic, is he more or more, less, or the same as athletic wise as Tua is in the pocket?
I think he's less athletic than Tua is in a
Okay.
pocket.
Okay.
So I don't see him getting very creative outside the pocket. Now he'll hang in there. And if he does try to buy a second chance, he just doesn't move well enough to buy a second chance. So I'm going to label him, whether it's fair or not, in my opinion, is more of a pocket passer than an off schedule creative playmaker.
Yeah.
But he does have great anticipation. He throws with great accuracy. He ices his arm down after every because of how many deep shots they take, and
I know.
he may be the best deep ball thrower in this draft by far.
So much. I mean, it helps to have, we'll talk about Roma Dunze in a second, but to have someone who has the strongest hands in college football as well. Because if you throw it up, Roma Dunze is coming down with it, and he's built like what looks like an edge rusher.
And the one thing that really stuck out to me, and when you start to, as I was watching this, is that he has such a quick release.
Mm.
And I don't want to say because he's left-handed, but his release reminds me of Tua's release when you watch Tua play with the Dolphins, as far as the ability to get the ball out and to anticipate, and the timing with the receivers that he has is incredible.
So I'm going to go on record and say I think he's a little better athlete than maybe you're giving him credit for. I think he's in the Tua range, but he's not a plotter back there. I mean, he's not Tom Brady.
No, but he is, compared to today's athletes playing
Yeah.
the position, would be labeled a pocket passer
Yeah,
to
he
me.
ain't Lamar Jackson either. He's right.
No.
He's closer to the Tua than Lamar. Okay, fair enough. So look, man, if you told me he went in the first round, maybe even the middle of the first round, I wouldn't bat an eye at that. Is that too rich for you?
I think that, like I said, coming off of this game with that type of stage and that type of hype going into that game, it's amazing that the Pac-12 was going extinct.
It's
Maybe the
crazy.
best conference in college football.
I know.
And they've got 5 or 6 quarterbacks that are going to get drafted. It's crazy to me.
So the last two throws he made, one was that whole shot to Jalen Polk, who we'll talk about as well. Then he came back and threw that back shoulder to Odunze, and he snatched. Those are two big boy throws in high pressure situations that if you're sitting there freezing your butt off because you didn't bring a jacket, you're making note of that, right?
If I was not shivering and
Right. You're trying to write like that.
But no, those type of throws really stuck out to me, and those are NFL, as you said. If you want to use the word big boy throws, I don't know if it's politically correct, but
You can say big boy throw.
they are big time throws.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm taking him as QB3 right now. It's not necessarily that Shedeur Sanders has fallen off the map, but he's probably coming back. He struggled a bit recently. That offensive line is in shambles, and it has less to do with Shedeur and more to do with the way Penix is playing for me. Across the field, Mr. Bo Nix. And we talked about this a lot in August with a lot of these quarterbacks, rookies who came in and dominated preseason. I mean, they laid eggs subsequently when they were asked to start in the regular season, but whatever. Aiden O'Connell and DTR in particular, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who looked great in preseason because they had so much experience in college. I think Bo Nix is 36 years old. He's been in college so long. But the athleticism pops. I always am surprised at how athletic he is, even though we've watched him every week. He has a good arm. I think he typically makes good decisions. Now, he's a tier below from Michael Penix Jr. for me. I think sometimes he makes good decisions when he gets outside of the pocket. That first touchdown he threw across his body into the end zone. I loved it. He had a similar play later in the game, which should have been intercepted. And it's, you talk about this a lot. Just throw the ball away and live to play another down. I think also one of the things that I struggle with watching him is that he is inconsistent on his intermediate and deep throws in terms of layering the ball. Sometimes it comes out too flat. Sometimes he seems to have too much on it, and I'd like to see a little more consistency there. That said, I have been impressed with what he's done at Oregon in a year and a half.
He is not the same level of quarterback in the pocket as Penix is.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So, but he is more creative outside the pocket, and he keeps his eyes down the field. He made, like you said, some great throws in this game when he's off schedule or outside the pocket. I think he may be a better thrower on the move or outside the pocket than him trying to sit there in the pocket and get through progression in a read.
Let me ask you this, though. When you're talking about this in the room in the spring, maybe, you need someone to play within the offense, though. So how are you
Well, that's
figuring.
you're asking yourself, can he play within the offense that we're going to run? If it's a West Coast offense and the ball's out quick, but is in the pocket and is he an accurate? I don't think he is as an accurate of a thrower in the pocket as he is outside the pocket. I have some
Wow.
questions with his accuracy.
Okay.
And the thing that really soured me was right before the half on 3rd and 3 at the goal line. And he had a wide open. He kind of rolled to his right, had the wide open running back, made a really poor throw, which it
Right.
should have been, as you said, a big time throw. And it didn't. It was a layup. Just put it out there, let him run in, and you go in with, the lead at half or whatever the score was at the time. And then watching the game, he went and was not yelling, but encouraging the coach to let's go for it on 4th and 3 instead of kick the field goal. And then he rolled to the right again and just threw it up there and incomplete. They go into the half, no points. That 3 points was the difference in the game of taking it to overtime or not. But I
Yeah.
was really disappointed in that sense is that you had an opportunity to make a very easy throw for the running back to basically walk in the end zone right before the half and it didn't execute.
Yeah, no, I get it. And to his credit, he came down and had some big time throws that last drive as well for
Yeah,
Oregon in the
back down.
fourth quarter. And
Yep.
I would just I agree that you can't dirt that throw. It's a layup. A seventh grader can make that throw. That said, we saw Justin Herbert honk a throw late in the game on Monday night, and he's one of the best players on planet Earth. So you got to figure out what it means.
Is he? But that's a whole nother
Yeah,
podcast.
I know. Golly. I don't know, man. I love Justin Herbert, and it just didn't work. I don't know why they can't beat teams. The Cowboys are a good team, but they should have won that game. That's a conversation for another time. All right, so Bo Nix to me feels like a day 2 guy, maybe even round 2 because of the do you call it upside when you're 24? That's too rich for you?
I think he's maybe a third rounder. I'm going to put him in that category, borderline third, fourth rounder.
So let's see. Like
Now, but it'll be interesting if all these guys show up down at the Senior Bowl and we actually get to see him throw live and watch him practice
right.
during the week, because that will determine a little bit on getting a real true sense and feel for him, because you can see everything that you can't see on tape.
Yeah. And I don't want to spill the beans. There's a chance it might be the Shrine Bowl too, so we might be doubling up. So we'll see a lot of these guys. Speaking of the Shrine Bowl, last year DTR and Aiden O'Connell were there. And if you had to draft Nix, DTR, and O'Connell, how are you ranking those guys?
He's like an in between.
Okay. You like
Not
DTR a little better?
DTR, maybe a little bit more accurate thrower than DTR, I thought, coming out of UCLA. Better athlete than O'Connell, but maybe not as polished as a passer from the pocket. So
Yeah.
I put him right there in between, whichever way you want to throw him in a bag and pick him
Well, that
out.
says early day 3 then.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stick with day 2 just because the upside. But let's go to these wide receivers, and I'll just name them, and then we can talk about them. Rome Odunze, we talked a little bit about. Jalen Polk, we talked a little bit about. Jalen Polk made my top 50, by the way. Troy Franklin as well on the Oregon side. All these guys went over 100 yards. What do you make
How
of
many
faces?
guys you have in your top 50? 150? You can only have top 50 means there's only 50 guys. Every guy we talk about's in your top 50. I don't know how you fit them all in. It's amazing.
It's the same thing. Like everyone's a first round grade for me too. That's just how it works.
Incredible.
I know. It's wild for sure. So let's talk with the Washington guys first, and then we'll go to Troy Franklin on the Oregon side. And I talked about Troy Franklin a few weeks ago when we talked about the Oregon-Colorado game, how he flashed there. Odunze's just, I like him more and more the more I watch him. When I first saw him over the summer, I thought maybe he wasn't as twitchy as he turns out that he is. But physical, fast, stacks these cornerbacks on these vertical routes, and then he just wins jump balls. And I know a lot of times we talk about, well, if he's not creating separation in college, maybe he's just slow. He's just taller than everyone else. I feel like Odunze checks a lot of boxes. Polk, number 2, is a little twitchier, a little thinner in frame, but he can high point the ball as well. And then Troy Franklin reminds me a little bit of Polk in terms of the way they approach the game, but I didn't think Franklin was quite as smooth in his movements as Polk was.
No, Odunze's really helped himself. Now he may be climbing his way up into that first round too, as we try to figure out who the number 2, 3 receiver is. I mean, I think he's starting to get his name in the conversations with the neighbors of the world, even though he may not be as fast.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree.
Bouquet from Ohio State. So it's going to be a really strong receiver. Coleman at Florida State. I mean, there are going to be some really good receivers in this draft class the more it continues to unfold through the season. But Rome has done a phenomenal job as far as when a play needs to be made in a critical situation in the game. Penix knows he can put the ball up, and Odunze has a pretty good chance of, if it's in a contested situation, if it's a back shoulder throw, he is going to go get the ball. And he just seems to come up with big plays in critical times during the game. He is excellent size, excellent strength, body control, everything you're looking for. He may not be the most electric with the ball in his hands after the catch, and he's probably not going to run a 4.3, but he is a extremely talented receiver that wins down the field because of his athleticism to go up and get the ball and his strength to go up and get the ball over a DB.
Yeah, I forgot to do. I'll go back and do it. I forgot to do the Spielman trick of counting 2 steps for 5 yards and trying to translate that. Someone who actually listened to the show mentioned in one of the comments they did exactly that with Brendan Rice, the Jerry's son for USC, and thinks he might be a 4 or 5 guy. So we'll find out. So look at that, Rick. You're spreading your wisdom around the world. One of the notes I wrote down when I was watching this game is, why on God's green earth would you leave Odunze in single coverage if you're Oregon down the stretch? Because you know where the ball's going, and he might as well be uncovered at that point.
Right, but Polk is a good receiver. It's the first time I really noticed him or got a chance to look.
What'd you think?
I think he's smooth athlete. I think he's fast. I think he has a large catching radius. I think he made some big plays down the field in this game. I was kind of pleasantly surprised. I think he needs some route refinement. I don't think he's in the upper echelon of receivers. We didn't even talk about McMillan, who's also on that roster.
He got hurt. He's been battling injuries the last few weeks. He played the first few snaps and came out as well. But right, yeah.
But this Polk has kind of stepped up in his role.
Yeah.
They have NFL talent at the quarterback and receiver position, and
that helps.
Yeah, why the Huskies are where they're at right now.
Yeah,
and they may be a Final Four team if they keep going undefeated.
I mean, they're better than USC right now, and I'm looking forward to that matchup, which I think is later this fall. And what about on the other side, Troy Franklin, who reminds me, as I said, a little bit of Polk, but I don't think he's quite as sudden or smooth in his movements.
Yeah,
you didn't like him?
He made some explosive plays. It takes him a while. Like, he tried to run a stutter go. He has to gear down. Then it takes him like from gear 1 to gear 2 to gear 3. It takes him a while to get going back up again. But he's not very twitchy, especially with routes coming back to the quarterback. I do like his catching radius. He had the 3 explosive plays I charted, 30-yard touchdown, the 9 route that looked like a busted coverage. Should be had very good tracking skills. He just doesn't do much after the catch for me, even though he made some explosive plays. And I think he needs to get stronger when he's in a contested situation. Too many times for his length. Now, he looks wiry. I don't know how much he weighs, but he lets the DBs come through him to have pass breakups, where when you compare him to Rome, that guy, no one's coming through. He's a man's man.
Yeah, he's boxing out.
He's boxing out, and he's like a small forward on a basketball team. This kid needs to get stronger in contested situations and go get the ball.
I don't know what type of workout Troy Franklin would have to do to look like Rome Odunze, but it's probably not legal. So I would just encourage him to
work out to look like me, but then that's a whole other.
All right.
Debo does this caricature again to help you out.
I love that fires you up more. You don't care that I have a head full of hair in that photograph. You care that I have my muscles are as big as yours.
Yeah, it's false advertising. I think we can get arrested for that.
I dare someone to try to arrest me with those pipes. All right, let's pop or drop these guys before we take a quick break here. Penix feels like a pop.
Pop. Yep.
All right, where are you on Bo Nix?
Drop.
I knew it. Unbelievable. I'm giving him a pop. Odunze's got to be a pop.
Yep.
Tell me about Polk.
Pop.
All right. And then it feels like Troy is not your guy.
Nope.
Okay. Nixon Franklin got drops. I'm going to pop everybody because that's how I am. Everyone's in the top 50. Everyone's a first-round pick. Everyone gets a pop.
Yeah. Amazing. It's amazing how you make that all work.
Welcome to my world. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at old Drake Maye and some of his teammates there at UNC and how their weekend went against the U right after this.
This Saturday, it's back to back to back college football.
Into the end zone. What a throw, unreal.
It all starts at noon on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Rick. The Tar Heels played the Hurricanes and put a whooping on them by the time it was all said and done. Taylor Van Dyke started off okay and then sort of hit a rough patch there. But I want to talk about Drake Maye, the quarterback, number 2, who's been the consensus since the draft ended back in early May. And I'll just keep coming back to the same things I've said throughout the fall when we talk about Drake Maye. Athleticism's there, playmaking ability's there. At times, his footwork can be sloppy, and it affects his accuracy. I think at times he makes some really poor decisions. And look, the offensive line at times has been horrific, and it's hard to get a gauge on how good you are when you're running for your life. Ask Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. And I just wonder if the lack of consistency and the poor decision-making is something that you can not be concerned about when you draft him to the NFL, because it feels like it should be a concern. So I love him. He's quarterback 2, but I have questions, and that's what I'm posing to you.
Well, he took a beating this game.
Yeah.
I mean, they were sending people from left field, right field, center field.
The bleachers.
He does not have a lot of talent around him. Des Walker, who we're going to talk about, is a talented receiver that we'll get into here in a minute. But when he has time and he can get through his progressions, he makes all the NFL throws you want to see. I mean, the post route to Des Walker was a great throw. I seen him come off his first initial target to get to his second when he had time. But too often he was getting pounded now.
Yeah.
You ask if anyone questions this kid's toughness, I don't know how you can do that. So, and he doesn't have receivers that create separation or even get open, especially when they were playing man coverage and everything else, because Miami had a very aggressive approach to trying to keep him off kilter in this game. And but I don't have as many concerns with him as you do. I just think that he doesn't get a lot of help around him. But when you give him at least some time, then he makes all the accurate NFL throws that you need to see.
Yeah, no, I get it. And that's why I said the offensive line is not very good. Let me ask you this question, and just for the sake of conversation, not that I necessarily agree with it, but last year, this time, we were making similar excuses for Will Levis. What's the difference in terms of what you've seen? I know you're huffing and puffing there. What's the difference over the first 2 months of the season for Will Levis last year and Drake Maye this year?
This guy is not nearly as mechanical as Will Levis.
Okay.
Will Levis, to me, was more robotic.
But he didn't have an offensive line, didn't have playmakers around him, and he struggled with a lot of the same things.
Plays than Will Levis did last year.
Okay.
Maybe similar situation that you're putting him in. But I think it's going to be different now. At least he has a legit NFL prospect in Walker.
Okay.
I've seen this first game I've ever seen Walker play in. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, look, he's QB2. He's a top 5 pick, no doubt about it. I'm just asking the questions because, I'm tough on all these kids. Literally everyone's a first-round pick except Drake Maye for some reason.
Apparently he's not even in the top 50 for you.
No, I love Drake Maye, but he makes some throws. And you're like, all right, well, I'm going to make a note of that and ask Rick and let Rick support him. You know what Pete would say? Pete would say, he must go to Alabama the way Rick talks about that kid. All right, let's go to his roommate, his teammate, Tez Walker, finally got a chance to play, came back last week against Syracuse when they blew the doors off the Cuse, played again against the U, had 6 catches, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns. Do you have 3? Good Lord. I'm going to start here because I think I know the answer based on what you just said, but I'm not sure I feel the same way as you're going to feel in my mind. Tez Walker or Troy Franklin? Who do you like more?
Tez Walker.
Okay. Because I think I like Franklin a little more, but tell me why you like I thought Tez wasn't – he feels like a long strider. It doesn't necessarily feel like he's going to win a lot early in the route based on his feet. But
Franklin's a quick twitch.
No. I don't. But I mean, if I'm comparing them, they're pretty close. Walker's a better built wide receiver.
More explosive than Franklin. So
Tez is in your mind?
Oh God, yeah, it's not even
okay. All right, go ahead. Tell me about why you like Tez.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry. I apologize. I still have 91 more days to be nice to you.
No, you're being fine. That was nothing. That was kid gloves.
Woo. Say, what?
Take a deep breath. All right, Tez Walker, you have the floor.
Very smooth, very athletic. Is explosive into and out of his cuts. Very good hands, natural hands catcher that extends away from his body. He can kick it into second gear after the catch. He ran through Kitchen's tackle for one of the touchdowns. You seen him separate on the post route for a touchdown. He can start and stop as far as going from 0 to 60, where it took Franklin 22 minutes to get going from first to second.
He's crushing this kid.
This kid is very smooth after the catch. He can break tackles. He's strong.
Your dog's like Franklin better. I hear that.
So to me, there was no comparison. And this is only one game review on Tez Walker. So we'll have to see. But in this first impression I had, he jumped off the tape for me.
Maybe the other takeaway is that if Drake Maye took the beating he did with Tez, imagine what he was doing before Tez even was allowed to play in terms of having to take over games.
Well, I had the first time I had the exposure to Franklin. This last game, and this was my first exposure to Walker, and there was no comparison.
Okay, so Drake's going to be a pop for you?
Yes.
Pop, and then Tez you love. Pop. All right, let's talk about the.
Just
what'd you say?
How can you give Drake Maye a pop after you just
crushed him? Yeah, I'll give him a drop. You're right. I can't give everyone a pop. He's my he's the guy that I think is going to go in the 5th round this year. I'm calling it now.
Yep.
But I give Tez a pop. Let's go to a young man that you just spoke about on the other side there who missed the tackle, Cameron Kitchens. That was one of the few bad things I thought he did in that game, where this young man is out to send a message. And it usually involves trying to run through someone coming downhill, whether it's in the run game or whether it's someone running a little shallow or an over. He wants to hit you. I thought he did a pretty good job playing deep center field in both single high and two high in terms of his coverage responsibilities. He can open his hips and run with receivers. He didn't look stiff at all to me. The more I watch him, the more I like Cameron Kitchens.
Yeah, and there's no question his aggressiveness and the way he hits pops out on tape. He made a couple of really nice open field tackles in the run game. He looked like he was shot out of a cannon coming on that blitz.
He sacked Drake Maye. That's right.
I didn't know what was happening on Tez's post route for a touchdown. He kind of settled. The nickel was playing on outside leverage, and I didn't know, but it looked like both safeties settled. And they had the bracket up top, but there wasn't a bracket where he was. So if I was interviewing him, I would pull up that play and ask him what was his responsibilities and what happened and why was the Nick playing that far on outside leverage and you weren't there to take away the inside. But
hey, let me ask you this. So what if he says, yeah, I blew the coverage. That was my fault. I came down on the over underneath.
Love it.
Oh, okay. So you don't care that he made a mistake. You care that he owns it.
Own it. And I want to see if he's blaming his teammates or if he's taking the responsibility for it. And I want a guy that's taking responsibility because no one's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. And if they're willing to own it, I look at that as a huge plus when you're interviewing. But he's a very good football player. I just need to get a better feel for him in coverage. I haven't gotten back and watched all his tape yet on the deep part of the field. I think there may be some space issues with me as far as the coverage standpoint. But as far as the run support and the angles and the pursuit angles he takes, very good and very good open field tackler, except he missed that one tackle on Tez Walker, ran through contact when he kind of closed on that in route that ended up being a touchdown for Tez.
Let me ask you this. A lot of times that these safeties are playing in the deep half of the field in college. How often do you have the conversation about, well, this guy's a great tackler, let's move him a little closer to the line of scrimmage?
The safeties you can't get a feel for a safety in 1 game, 3 games. To me, you have to almost watch 7 or 8 games because they have limited opportunities come their way.
Right, right.
So, in order to get a great feel for a safety, in my opinion, you have to almost watch the entire season to try to see different situations because you're not going to see that situation in every game, depending on what the game plan is and depending on what they're doing with them.
Okay. Little insight there. Rick bragging about watching 80 hours of tape on the safeties.
Now, just getting ready for this podcast after I drive back across Alligator Alley.
I mean, I've never had so much homework in my life. I'll be honest with you.
Oh my God. I was almost thinking about jumping back in just because it's not, I don't have to write up many guys every week.
I thought you were going to say you're going to think about quitting the podcast so you could have a little more free time.
I couldn't. This is too important for our listeners. It's too important for you to grow as an evaluator.
Too important for my self-esteem. Pop, drop.
Pop. Because I did like his aggressive style play.
Yeah, he was fun.
If I don't know enough about him in coverage yet.
Yeah, no, he was a fun watch for sure. And a little sneak peek if you haven't seen or listened to it yet. Josh Edwards had Cameron Kitchens going in the first round of our mock draft. All right. So this was I was very interested to go back and watch Caleb Williams because watching live, that was a complete and utter ass whooping from top to bottom, not just for Caleb, but for that entire USC team on both sides of the ball. Xavier Watts, number 0 for Notre Dame, had a Hall of Fame game. He could not quit making plays, had an interception, at least one that I counted. But I went back and watched, and actually I felt a little better about Caleb. You go back and look at all 3 interceptions. There are reasons for the interceptions. And
dumb decisions.
What'd you say?
Dumb decisions.
Yeah, I get it, but I think you could, and I know what you're going to say. When I get him in a room and I ask him, and you go back and watch, you can figure out what he's thinking and what he's doing. Maybe he eats the ball, maybe he throws it away. But it's not a situation where he is completely and utterly out of his element, and he's not, what's the word? Flummoxed by the situation that has confronted him. I think he had all 3 of those interceptions in the first half. And then I was impressed that, number one, even though they're getting their teeth kicked in, he didn't quit playing hard until it got pulled because the game was out of hand. He made a lot of big-time throws after the fact when the game was well decided. And I give him credit for that. We know about the NAL. We know about he's going to be first overall. And sometimes maybe that guy could be like, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to go sit over here and chill out. But I took something away from that game in that he can still make the throws. He's still the first overall pick. You want to see him have to grit one out, and he had to take it. And I thought he bounced back as well as he could have given the circumstances.
I agree with you.
Oh, okay.
I'm having a tough time saying that.
I know you were hesitant.
The 3 interceptions in the first half, I think, were just poor decisions on him. Those are the type of throws that will be interceptions in the NFL as well.
Right.
He was under duress. He was just putting the ball up. You can't do that because it's going to create turnovers, especially Notre Dame has a good football team. But what I was impressed with the most was what you're referring to is he came back in the second half and played lights out, in my opinion. He made NFL throws. He made much better decisions. He didn't, even though they were down, he wasn't putting the ball in harm's way to create even more and trying to do things that weren't there. He kind of got through his progressions. He actually looked like a legit, not that he's not legit, but what he's going to have to do in the NFL in the second half. Right. And he didn't put his head in the dirt. He didn't go in the dumper. He came out and almost wanted to prove that, hey, that was an anomaly in the first half. And the way he came out and played in the second half, I was very impressed with the way he responded after a poor first half.
Yeah, and you want to see some adversity before you make the leap, just so you have a sense of what that looks like. And I think it says a lot about who Caleb is as a player that he was able to bounce back. He was clearly frustrated. I get that. And
who Caleb is as a competitor too.
Yeah. So here's the $10 question: pop or drop?
You know what? I'm going to go Pop because of how he responded from the adversity that and the poor decisions he made in the first half. If he would have continued that in the second half, it would have been a definite drop. But because he responded in a very positive way in the second half and looked like the number one overall pick in the second half after having such a poor first half, that spoke volumes to me.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. But 3 interceptions, I got to give you a drop. I do appreciate the way you finished that game, though.
Because you don't look at the underlying reason why I'm giving him a pop.
Well, the other thing is that he and Drake Maye are both outside the top 50, so that's why they're getting dropped.
Well, I think they'll be great value if someone get him in the round.
Absolutely. Debo wants me to ask you this question. I think he wants to see you reach through the screen and choke me, but let's see if that happens. I'm quoting Debo here. Are you entertaining people that say that Drake Maye has a chance to surpass Caleb Williams as QB1?
No, I'm not entertaining people that say that. That's like, will Jalen Hurst still play the way he played? He threw 3 interceptions. Is Debo ready to throw him off the boat now? Are you Debo? Should they get into this Caleb Williams, Drake Maye?
No, they have Tanner McGee. Don't forget Tanner McGee.
Yeah, God forbid. I forgot about that.
It's Tanner McKee for people who think that I don't know Tanner's name. Debo, do you want to follow up on that? Are the Eagles interested in Caleb Williams and or Drake Maye?
No, you got to find me a backup right tackle, though. That's the most important position on the roster.
Yeah, that's true. Lane Johnson. Hopefully,
he's athletic.
Yeah, Jalen Carter. Let Jalen Carter play right tackle. That would be something. All right. So, yeah, I mean, there has been some rumblings about Drake Maye. Maybe it has to do with coming back to school for Caleb. I don't know, but I don't think anyone on planet Earth would take, and no disrespect to Caleb, to Drake, you're taking Caleb first.
Yes, no question.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go to rookies, Debo, or do we want to take a break?
Let's take a quick break.
All right, take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about these rookie quarterbacks right after this.
The Scudetto, where the soul of Italy meets the pinnacle of calcio. Catch Serie A on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
All right, we had 3 quarterbacks of the rookie variety play on Sunday, but no Anthony Richardson, and he may need surgery, and he might be out for a while. Boy, that's not great for the Colts or for Anthony, so hopefully he's able to get back sooner than perhaps we think. But in the meantime, Bryce Young played. That Panthers team was up 14-0 in the first quarter on the Dolphins. Called the game. They ended up getting the brakes beat off of them by the time it was all said and done. And then C.J. Stroud led the Texas Hill win over the Saints in Houston. So let's start here. I thought this was Bryce's best game. I don't even know if it's close. Didn't throw an interception, didn't have a fumble. The very first drop back took a sack because Ike Ekwonu, God bless him, just whiffed on Bradley Chubb, and Bradley Chubb ran through the back of Bryce Young. Other than that, we continue to see throws down the field with anticipation. We can continue to see toughness in the pocket. I love the touchdown throw just over the outstretched hands of the underneath safety there in the back of the end zone. The arrow's pointing up in general on Bryce. I'm concerned about the owner's involvement. I'm concerned about Frank Reich having to continue to explain things away, him now giving play calling duties to Thomas Brown, which I'm excited to see. It feels like there's a lot of ancillary stuff going on, but in terms of Bryce, the football player, it feels like he's getting better.
Yeah, no, I thought this was his best game, especially the first half. In the first quarter, he came out like gangbusters, and that touchdown to Thielen, it's called touch with velocity.
Oh, that's a good, yeah.
So he put touch on the ball, but enough velocity over that linebacker's head. And he was getting in and out of his progressions much better, looks much more comfortable, even though he's getting whacked still. No question about his toughness, no question about his athleticism to buy a second chance. Second half, I didn't think he played as well. But after coming off a 2-interception game against Detroit, no interceptions, took care of the ball. He continues to grow as a quarterback. You see some of the highlight type throws that he can make. And I think his education process will be continuing through the year. But I have no doubt he's going to be a very good quarterback in this league.
Hey, let me ask you something that they talked about leading up to this game. I don't know if Frank Reich said it out loud, but the reporters, the Panthers beat reporters were talking about it. They simplified the offense, quote unquote, for Bryce. What does that mean?
It means they're not giving them 22 different things to think about at the line of scrimmage, whether that's, okay, when you get up there, make sure you're calling all the protections, identifying the mic. That should be the center's job, especially for a young quarterback. And okay, go to A to B, not A to B to C to D.
Gotcha.
And just making things so he can play fast and he doesn't have to think when he plays and he can just go out there. I know A to B. Okay, that's elementary. I understand that. Then I can just play with my ability and not having to think.
Yeah, we saw that. And part of me wonders, why don't we just start there for a rookie quarterback and work our way up? But then we'll talk about CJ Stroud in a second. Maybe just throw everything at CJ and you felt comfortable with it and he can handle it. So you keep building on that. But before we talk about CJ, one more thing I wanted to mention. Stephen Holder, who covers the Colts for ESPN, but he covered Frank Reich in Indianapolis, and he tweeted this out last week. He said it was an open secret in the league that David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, heavily influenced the quarterback choice in Carolina. They ended up taking Bryce. The assumption is that they wanted CJ. I had heard, like in March when we were doing our little pro day tours, that the Panthers were leaning heavily towards CJ over Bryce at the time. But then, things change. You never had to deal with this, but just in general terms, how do you deal with an owner that wants one thing that maybe the organization staff isn't necessarily in agreement with?
Well, the owner's the boss.
So you do what you're told?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you lay out all the options, you lay out the positives, the negatives, what's your reasoning, why you want to go this direction. But if the owner is that heavily involved and has the final say or the final call, then you go on board with it.
Yeah. And again, I'm just going on what I heard and what I read. And I love Bryce. Bryce was my QB1. He was your QB1. The issue, of course, is the size. I don't think his size has been a problem in terms of the way he's played. I mean, you could look like Anthony Richardson's out because he keeps taking hits. And I don't know if he would be any healthier playing behind this Panthers offensive line. But just something to note, something to keep an eye on. I'm glad Bryce is continuing to play better. And that was his best game by far. Now they just got to win a football game because I don't think that Mr. Tepper has a lot of patience with all this losing. Someone who doesn't have to worry about the losing, CJ Stroud, Houston Texans. They continued to ball out. CJ was only, quote unquote, 13 of 27 for 199, 2 touchdowns. Did have his first interception, but CJ is so good that he threw an interception. It was a terrible interception. I don't know how he missed Zach Bond standing there underneath. But Zach Bond fumbled it, and they got the ball back. I mean, that's how good the Texans have been playing. Great touchdown in the end zone to Dalton Schultz. He could have had 3 touchdowns. Schultz had one go off his hands later in the game. But again, they won that football game. And I thought this was the first time this season he's looked a little uncomfortable, and the defense was able to get him off the spot. The Saints have a really good defense. But again, you come away out of this game with your rookie quarterback in week 6 feeling pretty good about his continuing ascension to being a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, no. And he came back and he responded with some great downfield throws, especially those deep crossing routes to Nico Collins. He has a great rapport with him. Tank Dell was out this game, I believe, with a concussion, so he didn't have him available. He was a little off to me on some of those outside hitch type routes, outside the number throws that he normally was. But I thought he played with poise and patience. To me, you can't equate to this, but Debo can. Is that, okay, in our golf league, we have this double bogey pull. So you put $5 in. If you can go 18 holes without a double bogey, that you win the pot. Okay, and that pot grows because the guys I play with, no one ever goes. Every once in a while, you get a guy that just goes par bogey golf the whole time.
Wait a second. What's the gimme rule, though?
And no, you got to put everything out.
Okay.
Money on the line. So to me, this was his double bogey. He finally got it out of the way because of hole 12 or 13, I'm sure Debo's starting to shake in his shoes a little bit. I could go bogey free here. And all of a sudden he gets his double bogey on 14, and then he goes back to playing again. So it was nice streak. It was great that he accomplished what he accomplished, but now not everybody's talking about that. Now he can just go out. He doesn't have to worry as much. Well, and like I said, it was a poor decision on the throw, but it was almost like I want to get it over with so I can get interception so I can move on in life.
And best case scenario, they got the ball, literally got the ball back.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I believe the New Orleans Saints at the time leads the league in turnovers or interceptions. So there was a lot of some of the other shows that I was doing for CBS, there was a lot of over and under. Is this because of the New Orleans defense? He finally throws his first interception because of the ball hawking secondary that they do have.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That defense is for real. And they played a lot of man early on, and guys weren't getting as open as they were later. And then you had the runaways. You talked about Nico Collins running open. Dalton Schultz continues to build rapport with CJ. And CJ also had the second touchdown was to Robert Woods, where he came across the formation, looked left, wasn't there, and then whipped it right in the middle of the field to Woods there for his second touchdown. All right. Another inspiring performance by CJ. Bryce is on the up and up. And our guy, we saw the Senior Bowl and really did not look good at the Senior Bowl. Looked overwhelmed by being on the bigger stage. Tyson Bagent, D2 player out of Shepherd, I think Shepherd's University in West Virginia.
Yep.
Talked about him in preseason. Looked pretty good. Looked like a different player. Came in after Justin Fields hurt his wrist. And we'll see where we are on that as we get through the week here. In the third quarter, and his first pass, he ripped the ball to the left, a great throw on a flat route. Then, again, the offensive line just lost their minds. He got smoked, fumble 6, and that ain't exactly how you want to start things. But I came away pretty impressed with a young man with not a ton of experience at the high level, making some big-time throws. He has a big arm. He can make off-platform throws. Interception in the end. The ball came out funny. I don't think he got hit, but sometimes, and you rarely see this in the NFL, but when you try to throw a football too far, it can come out like a arm punt, and that's what that looked like. That sort of wrapped things up as they were trying to win that football game. But overall, I feel encouraged by Tyson Bagent's performance.
It reminded me of him going out there, and he didn't care. I mean, not in a bad way, in a good way.
Yeah.
I'm just go out there,
nothing to lose,
play an NFL game. I'm going to go out there and just have fun. And it looked like he was having fun. There's no question about his athleticism. He was throwing some off his back foot, and made some really nice throws. I think the first 6 attempts after that flat route were all screens.
Yeah.
Trying to get the ball out of stand. Some of them went in the dirt. And then the most disappointing thing was you have an opportunity to live for another down, and you throw that interception at the end of the game, and you're only down 6.
Right.
So poor decision, but hopefully he learns from that. But he was kind of watching him just as like he just wanted to go out there and play. It was almost like watching a little bit of street ball, where I understand he was doing what he was asked to do, going through doing the plays that were called, but just feeling free and having fun. And whatever was going to happen was going to happen. But I'm not going to go down without a fight or without a swing. And that's kind of the impression I got. Now, ways to go, definitely. And now the D coordinators have some game film on him. It's going to be a whole different ball game if he has to start next week. But no one really knew who he was, and I'm sure Minnesota didn't know who he was. I mean, you watch them. You're in game 6 now or 5. And so you're not going to go back and watch preseason game because you're not anticipating him to come in and play. You're doing all your game planning to try to keep Justin Fields under control because he's been on fire the last 2 weeks. So this kid comes in, and you're kind of getting a feel what this kid does basically on the fly. And but it was kind of fun to watch, although it was ugly at times, but it'll be a different story, I believe, if he has to start next week.
So in your mind, that's the difference between the preparation teams were afforded when Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Aiden O'Connell started for the Browns and Raiders, whereas Tyson just came in.
Yeah, and they were announced there. They knew they had an opportunity to potentially start.
And those young men had very rough afternoons.
Yes, they did. And I have a feeling that Bagent, if you want a French term, just like Mason Smith.
Mason Bagent.
That may be a little different outcome on now that these defenses will watch this game, and then they'll go back and watch all of his preseason tape if he's projected to be the starter next week.
Yeah, but credit to him. Like you said, he came out and was just slinging it, 10 of 14 for 83 yards. Did have that interception at the end, dictate that sack that was returned for 6.
Oh, yeah, he did. It's like I said, no holds bar. I got an opportunity to go out and play an NFL game. Well, I'm going to go out and just as Joe Webb told me before he went out in the first NFL game, I don't know what's going to happen, but some stuff is going to happen.
Some stuff happened. And look, I'll say this in Tyson's defense: the strides he made from January when we saw him in Mobile to the August when we saw him in preseason to last Sunday, those are enormous. So credit to him for that. And we'll see what happens should he have to start if Justin's going to be out for some time with that wrist injury. All right, Rick, let's hit my top 5 rookies. And I'll read them out here since we're pressed for time. I'll go 5-1, and then we'll go through them quickly here. Number 5, Deonte Banks, cornerback for the Giants. Man, they should have won that game in Buffalo. Devin Witherspoon at number 4. And these guys were all really close if you're going to press me on that. Devin Witherspoon playing a lot more slot now for Seattle, started outside. And now that he's healthy, they're moving him everywhere, and he's just lighting people up in that game against the Bengals. That was a fun game to watch. Zay Flowers bounced back from that not-so-great performance against the Steelers, had 6 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown for the Ravens at number 3. And number 2, Michael Mayer. They're finally using him in Las Vegas. He's becoming a bigger part of the offense. I forgot, and this is on me, this dude is a really good athlete. Like, he moves well in space. He's not just some inline plotter. Rick's making a face. You can talk about that in a second. And number 1, my guy, your guy, Bryce Young. And you can put CJ there, but I'm giving Bryce a little love because we haven't talked a lot about him except for in bad terms in recent weeks. So I want to give him a shout out for his performance, even though they got the doors blown off against a really high-powered Dolphins team. So take it away, Rick.
Yeah, no, Banks is a very good man cover guy. He's not as good when he's in off. Made a great play on Diggs when they scrambled, and then he plastered Diggs when Josh Allen got outside the pocket.
And didn't DPI it. Just he was very patient.
No, and he is a physical corner. Now he's going to get his hands on you, and he's going to. There are a couple questionable why they didn't call defensive penalties on him, but he's not going to back down, which is fun to see. And Witherspoon continues to impress me every time he gets on the field. On whether he's blitzing, whether he's knifed off the edge on a run support and threw his bag of bones into the pile and made a nice tackle. Gets his hands on balls down the field. Great close on some underneath routes.
On the first pass play, I think he blitzed off the from the slot and had to knock the pass down.
Yeah, that was one of his 3 PBUs. So he is playing very good. And I'm not going to say he's going to get in defensive rookie of the year conversations yet, but I would be creeping him up the whatever the plus 250 if I wanted to.
Wait a second. What do you mean you wouldn't put him in the conversation yet? Because of Jalen Carter or because of?
I would put him in that. I don't think he's Jalen Carter yet.
Yeah.
But I do think that he needs to be starting to get talked about if he continues to play at the same time playing. Zay Flowers, it seems to be the go-to guy right now for Lamar. And there's no question about his twitch and great job adjusting a route on his touchdown. Also caught a 2-point conversion. London seems to be his cup of tea, as we like to say over there.
You love that one, didn't you? Hey, let me ask you something. So the drops last week, the whole team couldn't catch the football. Do you not even talk about it? Like it was so random, not something that was in his past, or you just move on? Like, how do you deal with that?
He didn't have a drop this game. So whatever reason they were dropping the ball, it was just one of those days. I mean, why do you want to keep harping on a negative? Why don't you just say, hey, that was
I want to make everyone better. I just have questions.
Okay, well, by making everybody better, okay, if it continues 5 games from now, then we got an issue. But hey, move on. It was a bad game. Let's go.
Hey, Rick, if you can't see it, there's a 1 in front of the 91. So
positive reinforcement. Straight negative. I it's hard to figure you out. You got 250 guys in your top 50. You got 200 guys in your first round mock, and yet you want to kill Zay Flowers because he had drops last year.
And Caleb and Drake, they're not going in the first round either.
Yeah. And Caleb and Drake are in the 5th round. Boy, you're hard to figure out on this podcast.
All right. Well, try to figure it. Oh, go ahead.
Mayer. So he's only had, I went back and looked, 12 targets and through these first games, and 6 of them came in this game. He needs to be more involved in the offense. He is not a unique athlete for the position, but what we saw in college, you saw in this game, his ability to catch the ball. I really was impressed, not with his athleticism as a runner after the catch, but he runs hard and he can make a sidestep, but he's not. Yeah. He does things that showed up and why he was selected where he was selected. And a lot of things you've seen at Notre Dame, you've seen here. And he was very good in pass pro. I went back and watched some of his pass pro reps. He needs to get more consistent as an inline run blocker because we labeled him the most complete Y type tight end coming out in this year's draft that can do a lot of things good. And I think he's going to continue to get better, but he's never going to be a complete mismatch guy. Like a Kyle Pitts or
Oh, good. No. But I mean,
someone like that. But he is going to be a very solid tight end.
you talked about it just a moment ago in the ball he caught in space there, and then he juked the defender and cut inside. That's some athleticism that I sort of had forgotten about when he's at Notre Dame.
Yeah, but it was a nice little subtle sidestep juke move, and then he plows forward and runs through about 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah.
To get extra yards after contact. That's the type of tight end. It's a very good tight end. I think he's going to be a good tight end in this league.
Let me ask you this. If he's playing in the slot and you line Devin Witherspoon up on him 10 times, who you taking?
I'm taking Witherspoon, but the only thing that showed up in Mayer's college tape is that I thought he had some unique skills in contested situations.
Okay.
And has very good hands in contested situations.
Okay. So that'd be a good matchup. All right. And we talked about Bryce. You want to give Bryce any more love, or you're all loved out on Bryce?
Keep going that way.
Keep going that way. And
if going to see with Brown, the play caller, if he does things differently with Bryce.
Yeah. So Thomas came over from LA with Sean McVay, and we'll see if that has any impact on what they do. We just talked about what
actually in Indy with Frank Reich, and Irsay made him fire him.
Wait, say that part again. What'd you say?
He was in as the OC with Frank Reich with the Indianapolis Colts. And before Frank Reich got fired, 3 weeks before that, the Irsay made Frank Reich fire Thomas Brown.
Oh, God. I didn't know that was Thomas. Oh, my goodness. All right. Interesting. Well, let's hope David Tepper and Mr. Irsay aren't talking on the phone about anything, and the Panthers can get this thing turned around. Because I would like to see them get a win. Bryce continue to play well. If you want to put CJ in the top 5 there, number 1, go ahead if that makes you feel better. I just wanted to give Bryce some love to make that clear. Otherwise, I think we're done, Rick. That's a wrap on episode 89. Thanks as always to my guy, Rick. Thanks to Debo for producing, and thanks to all you guys who watch and listen. We'll be back on Thursday to talk about my top 50 big board, Rick, so study up. We'll see.
I got between now and Thursday to look at 250 guys to make them squeeze in the top 50.
And don't forget, we had also look at the 5-star reviews. Going to empty that mailbag. So you have 300 guys to watch.
Oh, my God.
All right. We'll see you guys in.